Okay, we're continuing with this book here, The French Mind by Watson. I'm especially interested in the artists. The book's mostly about gossip and salons and philosophers and stuff like that. I'll talk about them a little bit as well, but it's also just a little bit of a general overview of French history since about 1600 onward. The hierarchy of paintings is pretty much Christianity is the utmost, if you will, the most respected, the most honorable. Next in line would be the ancient Greeks and Romans, then literary figures like Shakespeare and whatnot, portrait painting, scenes from everyday life, landscape, and still life at the bottom. And of course, the painter just wants to make money. Here is Parnassus, Mount Parnassus of poetry, and Aristotle, the god of reason in ancient Greece, is the leader of Mount Parnassus. And here is Aristotle, and this is very much similar like to Raphael's painting in the Stanza Signatura, the signature room of the Vatican. Okay, so they were all competing with each other. The French were competing with the Italians, with the English, with the Germans, the Prussians. And so this is the French version, more sort of Baroque and more grandeur, if you will. The French were good at that. Here is by Claude Lorrain. This is Apollo guarding the cattle of Admetus, and this is Mercury stealing them. So Mercury was very precocious and brilliant and clever, and as pissed off as he was, Apollo couldn't help admiring him. So it's a famous story from Greek mythology. Okay, here is by Philippe de Champaigne. This is Alexander the Great bringing animals to Aristotle, the first biologist, zoologist, to dissect them and classify them. Aristotle invented the genus-species classification system, and Charles Darwin had said the greatest biologist before him was Aristotle. Aristotle did a lot. Okay, here is the abduction of the Sabine women by Romulus and his men. So Romulus had defeated Remus, and he was now the founder of Rome, and they needed women. So they went and stole them from the Sabines. That's what happened, and what came after that. Okay, so the point I'm making is these are the things that they felt were worth painting. And again, the way it works is the most exalted thing, the Christian paintings, you go to church on Sunday, you pray, to God. You can pray to a saint or the Virgin Mary to intercede for you with God. But that's basically holy stuff, moral stuff, Sunday church stuff, versus the ancient Greeks were more like for fun, the muse to motivate the artist, the writer. You can think of it like if you're at Notre Dame College. Let's say you go to Notre Dame for college. You go to church on Sunday, but on Saturday night you go to a Greek fraternity party, okay? So that's how they looked at this, in the 1400s all the way on up to modern times is the Christian stuff for serious morality and what is good and what you teach the family and the children, and the Greeks for fun. Okay, here is the painting of Jesus in the house of Simon the Pharisee. And, the Pharisees say to Christ, why do you let this, prostitute Mary Magdalene into our building? She's a low-life scum. And Jesus is like, you know what? She washed my feet. She anointed my feet. She kissed my feet. She's been so nice to me. What have you done for me? I like her more than I like you guys, okay? And that was sort of, a pretty standard message of Christ, that all men are equal in the eyes of God. All right, so here is Jesus giving the keys to heaven to St. Peter, pretty fundamental thing in the story of the Roman Catholic Church. Thou art the rock upon which I shall build my church, okay? And there's different versions of this. This is the one by Perugino. There's the one by Raphael. And here's the one by Poussin. Okay, by Philippe de Champaigne, here is his painting of the Last Supper. Here's a painting by Champaigne, this one about St. Augustine. And so St. Augustine was a very bright guy, and he was a good writer, but still he's real uptight and sort of into that predestination stuff, which is, I don't buy it. And what I think happens here is you go from Plato to Augustine to Martin Luther to Protestantism. Okay, and Protestantism is too obsessed with the Bible. it's too much doom and gloom. It's too much, do what we say or you'll burn in hell. And it's like, yeah, give me a break, all right? Whereas Catholicism comes from Aristotle, Aristotelian view of philosophy and life through Christ, through St. Augustine, who baptized Aristotle, and basically the Roman Catholic Church. It coexisted with paganism for over 500 years. And it's sort of, as Will Durant had said, it didn't just get rid of paganism, it sort of adopted it in a sense. It has much more celebratory enjoyment of life. I went to a Catholic school. There was all these parties, all these feast days. It was a lot of fun. All the families knew each other. You knew all your friends, you knew their parents, you knew all the kids in your school. It was very friendly and open and nice, and everybody had to behave. The parents, the adults were in charge. They'd kick your butt. There was no disrespecting or fighting or bullying. Nobody was on drugs. Nobody was having sex. Okay, you go to the public schools, the kids are on drugs, having sex, getting pregnant, all kinds of craziness. Okay, and then here's the last painting for today. This is called Seaport at Sunset by Claude Lorrain, another French painter. These were basically French painters from the 1600s. They're quite good. Just wanted to give you a sense of them. In upcoming lectures from this book here, The French Mind, we'll go through some of the French painters of the 1700s and the 1800s, as well as a few other interesting things and people from France. I hope you find that interesting.